So I recently watched Netflix's docuseries titled Crime Scene: The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel. Let's go! Woo! It focuses on the story of Elisa Lam, a 21-year-old Canadian student born to immigrant parents from Hong Kong, who disappears without a trace during her trip to LA while staying at the infamous hotel, where she is later found dead. A lot of you might have heard of the case and probably watched the series to see if the filmmakers and witnesses would shed some new light on Elisa's unsolved mystery. Who are we kidding? We've all watched it for the creepy elevator footage and to see them go, "Yep, she was totally possessed, definitely playing some Korean demonic elevator game to press some buttons and get transported to the other world, aka probably hell, cause why not? Let's see what happens. What could go wrong?" I knew this case before watching the docuseries, and after finishing it, I've noticed right away that there were numerous facts that the filmmakers omitted. Hence, here I am, ready to enlighten you. Elisa traveled to the US by herself in January 2013, first visiting San Diego, then arriving in Los Angeles on January 26, 2013, where she later checked into the Cecil Hotel. She would contact her family daily, but failed to do so on January 31st, and on February 1st when she was also supposed to check out of the Cecil Hotel and head for Santa Cruz. She never did. Her family immediately raised an alarm and reported Elisa to the LAPD as missing, to which a search action was started promptly by the authorities. After over 2 weeks of continuous search and investigation, Elisa's body was discovered in one of the water tanks on the hotel's rooftop on February 19th, and the missing persons case turned into a suspicious death case. Okay, now there are quite a few things that were either not reported in the documentary or were completely dumped like garbage by the investigation team while trying to solve Elisa's premature death, which ain't good. If you're supposed to resolve someone's mysterious death, by all means necessary. The first thing that both the investigators and the documentary fails to report is the missing information on Elisa's whereabouts between January 26th and January 28th, after she arrived in LA and before she checked into the Cecil Hotel. Where did she stay for 2 nights? Unless the reports are incomplete or the information about her whereabouts during those 2 days was simply never revealed, there's a huge black hole between her arrival in the city and her stay at the Cecil, which could potentially hold crucial new evidence in the case. While traveling in California, Elisa is known to have been contacting her family on a daily basis through phone calls, as well as she was active on her social media during that time. Her mobile phone, however, was never found in the belongings recovered from the hotel. I know, right? The victim's phone? Pfft, we don't need that. Like, we can trace it anyway. What year do you think it is, 2050? Her missing phone is never looked into, despite the fact that her Tumblr blog seems to have been updated after her death. Could it be the Tumblr's Q option? Or could it be that the phone was stolen at some point right before her death, and the thief, a hacker, or a possible suspect is behind the updates? Elisa's body was discovered on February 19th, 2013. And even though her case was a very high-profile one, the coroner's report was not completed until June that year, and even then, the report seemed to have made the conclusion about Lam's death based on incomplete evidence. One of the things found on Elisa's clothing were unidentified particles and more. Quote, "Sand and small, flat, whitish and fragile flecks of unknown material were on or throughout all the clothing, and several dark hairs or fibers at least several inches in length were noted on a couple of the garments. The fibers and debris were left in place with the clothing items." End quote. This material was never examined further. Hold on, let me make this clear. You have unidentified and possibly suspicious material on her and you are just gonna... What did you just do? Another fact that goes unmentioned in the documentary is that Elisa's autopsy record recorded that, quote, "The anus is edematous and shows pooling of blood in the subcutaneous tissues surrounding the orifice." End quote. which some suggested might be a sign of sexual abuse, since her rectum was also prolapsed, but that and the bleeding could potentially resulted from bloating as one of the stages of the body's decomposition process. The investigators never really confirmed in the results of the rape kit and fingernail kit that were performed on Elisa, or if those were even processed. Bitch, get me my pitchfork. Although the documentary does go a little more into how she got into the water tank and whether or not it was physically possible, they can't seem to get their story straight, especially when it comes to the tank's lid being closed or opened when the body was found. Turns out that the lid was opened when the hotel's employee found Elisa's body, and that immediately resolves the dispute about whether it was physically possible for her to close it from the inside. It does leave one grim scenario that if someone put her in the tank, they might have wanted to avoid touching any parts of the tank by not closing the lid, which was confirmed by the lack of fingerprints at the crime scene. That, however, was never further investigated. Elisa Lam's death was likely connected to her mental health issues and the medications she was supposed to take, but as experts agree, was not taken properly. Nevertheless, there is more than one suspicious clue that remains untested, or simply not pursued any further. But whether or not her depression, bipolar disorder, and insufficient treatment were the sole culprit in her tragic end, remains unsolved. God, I know I took my sweet time with this video, I'm so sorry. Things were and are happening, but I'm doing my best to not leave you guys hanging. Thank you so much for being here and watching, and we're getting close to 2,000 subs, which I cannot thank you enough for. And if you want to support me on my YouTube journey and at the same time get some perks, check out my Patreon. As always, stay safe, lock your doors, until the next time.